Hello, I'm Brett Knowles from PM2 Consulting. This short YouTube provides an overview of the work we did at the City of Edmonton along with their great team from the transportation area in their efforts to translate their strategy into action. By way of introduction, we've been involved in the scorecard area since the research in the late 1980s. We've completed probably 2,000 or 3,000 scorecards in all sectors literally around the world. Most of the books written on the Balanced Scorecard cite our clients as best case examples, and we've won a number of Hall of Fame awards from Drs. Kaplan and Norton for the work that we've done. In the City of Edmonton, there's no shortage of strategic thinking. The Council and Mayor have come up with a number of documents defining the overall strategy and cascading it down into 7 The Way books, such as The Way We Move, The Way We Live, The Way We Prosper. And those have been dissected inside the departments to ever greater and greater details. In fact, there's also a plethora of different dashboards and scorecards available. One's intended for the councillors and the mayor, others intended for citizens, others for broad stakeholders, regulators, and other enforcement organizations. In fact, the problem they had was so much data and no ability to focus on which were the important issues and which data they should be looking at when. To help them in this program, what we did is we focused in on the way they move. So again, that's a cascaded strategy from the overall city and talks about the key objectives to get roads, transportation, and other departments aligned and moving to help grow the city and keep people moving. Those strategic objectives, we sat down with Council and aided them in prioritizing them. We kept it simple, high, medium, or low, and after a healthy 2-hour conversation, the Council agreed on where their strategic priorities were for the next couple of years. We used this, and imagine listing it down the left-hand side of a spreadsheet, and across the top we identified the core processes from all departments. Again, transportation, roads, public works, and so forth, and listed those core departments across the top. Then we rated and ranked how well the processes were supporting the strategic objectives. Clearly, processes that support highly important objectives have to perform at a higher quality level. When we went through this evaluation, we discovered that some processes may not be performing as well as Council would like. Let's zoom this in and take a look at it. So for each strategic objective, for example, integrate land use planning, we scored it in 2 ways. 1, impact. What is the impact of that process on that strategic objective? And we scaled it from 1 to 5. Secondly, we took a look at performance. How well is that strategic objective currently performing? Scaled from 1, very poorly, to 5, meets expectations. And the scaling is like this. We ended up with a mix of processes. Some support lots of strategic objectives, others not so many. And based on the weighting, we had a color code. So, for example, a 5 and a 3 on a highly weighted objective turns out to be red, yet the same score, impact of 5, performance of 3, on a medium weighted objective is only yellow. So in this format, we were able to create sort of a high-level dashboard of how all the processes performed in context. In addition, we could sort of add up across these columns and get a graphical representation. So what we see here is the total height represents the amount of process support to achieve that objective. The blue portion represents how well we're currently performing, and the gold is a gap between how we're currently performing and how we need to perform to be successful. Now this is important because it allows us to begin to see where we should be investing our project dollars to improve the city transportation system. In fact, we can look at the same data and add up by columns and see how well each of the key processes are supporting. In this case, the purple area represents how well the process is currently performing, and the gray is the gap between the current performance and what the strategy requires. Now, this is interesting for the process people, but for Council, we now provided the opportunity of looking at this horizontally. So we could drill into an objective like transform urban form and click on that objective and begin drilling into the data. So within Cognos, we begin to see how things are causing, in this case, transportation mode shift. We can see that all travel is not performing as well as we'd like, and in particular, road volumes is well off target, and percent daily trips by walking and single occupancy vehicles entering downtown are both below target. Now, what's interesting about this is we produce this by day 3. This is based on data that already exists in the system and was part of those tomes of data they had but didn't know how to put into context. In fact, we could take it a bit further so that if we drill into any particular strategic objective, we can begin to get a little bit of information about targets and actual performance. So again, this was easily done because the strategy already existed. We just had to harvest the objectives and priorities, and the data was already there. We just had to put it into context. In fact, we took it a step further and took a look at their key projects and began to rate those in the same fashion. Now again, we'll blow that up a bit bigger so we can see. For each project, we took a look to see what its impact was against each of those strategic objectives, and again scored it from 1 to 5, where 1 was minimal impact to 5 being significant. And if we add those scores up, it looks like this. So the red dots represent the amount of project impact. So in this example, integrated land use planning has a lot of projects stacked up against it, but others, like expanding the LRT, not so much. Now this is interesting, but if you remember before, we took a look at the how well we're currently performing and the gaps. Well, those projects are supposed to close the gap. So let's just tease out those gaps and graph those. So the gold bar are these same gaps that we saw before. So in theory, the projects we have should be targeted where these gaps occur. So let's combine these two graphs together, the gold bars and the red dots. This is what we see. This is typical, a significant misalignment between the project investment, the red dots, and the gaps. So in this case, cycle-friendly, big gap, not many projects. In other cases, focused roadway improvement, not much of a gap, and significant project money being spent. This is the misalignment that Council often sees and is trying to help the organization get back in line by putting those places in proportion to what the citizens' needs are. So, again, this work allows us to begin getting public-facing dashboards and scorecards put together, where we're looking at the same data but presenting it as those stakeholders want to see it, whether they're reports, in this case showing the performance, some analysis from the city administration people, what, so what, now what, and then that project analysis on the right-hand side to show us whether the projects are helping close those performance gaps. So what we're doing through the work of Cognos is bringing all that disparate data into strategic context and making it available to the citizens. And those reports come in multiple formats, whether they are hard copy or citizen inquiries against their website, or even dashboards used by council and the mayor to help make strategic decisions. I hope this has been useful to you. There are additional webinars and YouTubes available on our website under the Insights tab. Thank you for your time.